Yeah. So if we come to definition about communication, what is communication? Yes. Hebu niulize, mliandika notes ama tuandike notes? Yeah? Do we discuss notes or we write notes? Yeah? Uko na photocopy? Sio ni sawa tu, the same as kuandika. Na wengine, how do you want us to go about it? Do we discuss notes or we write notes? Najua I have option. Yes? Uliandika? Uliandika paka wapi? Kuna forms and mean of communication. Kuna hii type of communication, kuna form of hapa. Element of communication. Hapo ndio ulifika. So tufanye aje? To discuss ama tuandike? So we discuss, but uko nayo soft copy yake. So unaenda uendelee kuandika. Is that okay? So we said communication, we said just passing information from one source to another through a media, Even now we have a media. The media we are using to communicate with you is, yes? The media we are using now to communicate with you, because we say that we are now communicating. Is that okay? So any communication must pass through a media. If it does not pass through a media, then that will be intrapersonal communication, the communication that you speak to yourself, okay? Yeah, sometimes you find people laughing, they laugh on their own. So that's what refers to intrapersonal. But for communication to occur, there must be a sender, a receiver, and then there must be a media that is passing communication. So which media are we using now? Yes? Yes? What? That's a mean, that's not a media, that's a mean. Which media are we using? Yeah, yes, the media. We are using air to pass the message from me to you. Is that okay? So that's the what we refer as a media. So communication is just passing of information from one source to another through a media, Then we have this element of communication. Whereby we say there are 7 elements of communication. There are 7 elements of communication. For communication to be complete, this element must be present. So number 1, we have a sender. Okay? The sender must have what? The sender must have a message. Okay? Then if you have a message, you must put it in the way the other party will understand. Is that okay? And that process of putting the message in the other party to understand, we call it encoding. Then after encoding, making sure that the other party will understand, now you put the message into a medium. You put a message into a medium. So a medium here can be telephone, air, or anything that you can be able to communicate. So reaching the other side, tuko na receiver, but for receiver to receive the message, he must do what? Decode. Since it was encoded, he must decode. Decode here, it means to interpret. Tuko pamoja? A decode here, it means to interpret. So the receiver will receive the message, and then after interpreting the message, he will have something we know as feedback. You will now have something known as feedback. Feedback is the response from the the receiver. Feedback is the response from the receiver. So after feedback, then the receiver will also now require to put this feedback into a media back to the sender. So putting feedback, ataanza pia yeye afanye nini? Encode. He will also do what? Encode the feedback, and then he put also into the media, and reaching the other side, the sender will also do what? Receive, will also decode so that he receives the message, and that's how the circle goes. That's how the circle goes. Kama ni verbal, hapa katikati kuna air ama noise. Noise is now the in between here. Kuna noise ama kuna air in between if it is a verbal, but if it is written, then, so this is how the circle, this is how the element of communication goes. Is that okay? Yeah, ukiangalia watu wa CPA last sitting, waliulizwa give the function of the sender. Give the function of the sender in the communication process. So what could you have said? What are the function of the sender? Yes? Yeah, send a message to the receiver. Another one? He encode the message. Another one? Before he encode, he does what? He initiate the message. He initiate the message. He initiate the message. He encode the message, and then he send the message to the receiver. Send the message to the receiver. Another one, he meet the cost of the media. He meet the cost of the media. Hapo tuko sawa? Yeah. What about sender now? Receiver now? Yeah, send feedback to the sender. Another one? Receive the message. Another one? He decode, okay? And then he also meet the cost of the feedback, back to the receiver, okay? Yeah, then after here we have something known as effective communication. Effective communication. We have something known as effective communication. Communication. Whenever I talk about effective communication, kisikia kitu ni effective, what do you mean by the term effective? Yes? Effective. Yeah, that process is effective. What do you mean by that term effective? Yes? Yeah, then that passes maybe the required. Okay, talk on the term of quality, okay? Yeah, we are talking about something that near to perfection, okay? So if we're talking about effectiveness of a thing, we're talking about perfection of the thing, okay? So if we are talking about something effective, we are meaning something near to perfect, something near to perfect. So if we are talking about effective communication, so effective of communication will only be determined by the two things. Number one is by the principle of communication, principle that is being used, and number two, by the quality of the media. So that will what will determine if the communication will be effective or if communication will not be effective. So whenever I talk about effective communication, we talk now of the principle. Principle of communication. Principle or rules of effective communication. Rules of effective communication. For communication to be perfect, number one, we need to be, the message must be, or information must be accurate. Information must be accurate. Then number two, information must have an objective or aim. Information must have an objective or aim. Remember here we are dealing with the business communication. We are dealing with the business communication, not just any communication, but business communication. Tuko pamoja? Yeah, number three, it must be Relevance. It must be relevant to the subject matter. It must be relevant to the subject matter. Another one, it must be clear. It must be clear. Information must be clear. Then it must be in order or logic. 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 And then also we are talking about it must be precise. It must be precise. Yeah. Usiandike vitu mingi. It must be precise or brief. It must be precise or brief. So those are the rule of effective communication. Those are the rule of effective communication. So for you to determine whether the communication will be good or will be for you to determine whether the communication will be effective, then this rule must be adhered to. Okay. Then number 2, we say that also the quality of the media, the quality of the medium used. The quality of the medium used will also be able to determine if the communication will be, quality of the medium used will also be able to determine if the communication will be effective. Then, under looking at the quality of the media, we now check on the factor to determine when choosing the quality of the media, factor to determine when choosing the quality of the media, factor to determine when choosing the quality of the media. Number 1, as usual, is yes, factor to determine when we are choosing the quality of the media. Number 1 is yes, reliability. Reliability is also a factor there. Reliability of the media. Reliability of the media. We also talk of cost of the media. Cost of the media. Number 3, we talk of availability. Availability of the media whenever you want to use it. Availability. Number 3, we talk of. Number 4, we talk of. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, speed of the message, speed or nature of the message, speed or nature of the message. Then we also have confidentiality of the message, confidentiality of the message, confidentiality of the message. Then another one, we also have what? A speed up and urgency, speed up, a speed or urgency of the message, speed or urgency of the message, urgency of the message. Then we have that what we refer as nature of the message, nature of the message, nature of the message, nature of the message. Then number 7, we have what? We also have availability, tumesema hiyo. We also have resources or capital, resources or capital, resources of capital. Find that if organization neither afford, it can advertise. It can advertise what? It can advertise in the what? Maybe in the television or broadcasting, okay? But kama haiwezi, it will only write a notice, then inapatia watu wanatembezwa wakibandika bandika kila mahali. Is that okay? Due to lack of resource, okay? Then whenever we're talking about effective of something, yeah, it come at a time when also that effectiveness, it come to barriers that affect that effectiveness, okay? So barrier or those that hinder now communication to be effective, we call them barrier to communication. So barrier to effective communication, barrier to effective communication, effective communication. So if we are talking about barrier, we are talking something that can hinder that communication to be effective, okay? Yeah, that's those things that hinder, or those factors that hinder communication to be effective are the one we are terming as barrier. So Barrier to effective communication. Number one is noise. Number one is noise. We have noise as number one. Number two, language barrier. Language barrier. Language barrier. Number three, we have channel. We have channel or medium barrier. Channel or medium. Channel or medium. Number three. Number four, time. Time is also a barrier. Number five. Yes? Number five, we are talking assumption or attitude. We call it attitude or assumption. Attitude or assumption. Then also have expectation of communication. Expectation of communication. Expectation of communication. Expectation of communication. Then we also have what? Yes, barrier to effective communication also have what? Ni mingi, hizo zinafika 10, hata hizo sio. Ni mingi sana. There are many of them, okay? We have age difference. We have age difference. Yes, Alex. Barrier to effective communication. Yeah? Yeah, we have improper delegation. Improper delegation. Improper delegation. Delegation. Then we also have overhaul. Overhaul of information. Overhaul of information. Overhaul of information. And lastly, we have ni mingi sana, ni mingi. Saizo hata zinaweza fika 20. We have distortion. Distortion of information. Distortion of information. Distortion of information. Yeah, physical barriers. Mimi nimekupatia zote, wewe mwenyewe utachagua gani physical. Kuna physical, kuna environmental na kuna pia physiological, okay? We have three. We have physical, we have environmental, and we have physiological. Hizo saa zinatoka kwa maybe part of the sender or receiver, okay? Those we call them physiological. Like noise is environmental, okay? Like noise is environmental. So we mwenyewe utaclassify according to whether you can classify according maybe in physical, in environmental or physiological. Kwa sababu in most examination, that the question will be asked, okay? Yeah, give the physiological barrier to effective communication. Then it comes at a time when you have been told to give barriers and then you are told to give solution to those barriers. It comes at a time when you have been told to give barriers and then you are told to give solution to those barriers. Solution to those barriers, solution to barrier for communication. So ile umeandika ndio unapeana solution. Huwezi peana solution kitu hujaandika. Number one, noise. What is solution to noise? Yes? Yeah, you move to noise free. Move to noise free environment, noise free environment. Yes, number two. We have language, you use the use common language. Is your right? Common language between sender and receiver. Is that okay? Yeah, common language that everyone will understand whatever you are saying, okay? Use common language between sender and receiver. Common language for both parties. Common language for both parties. Then number three, we have channel. You use the right channel. 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 Then number four, we have what? Time. Make sure information is timely. Make sure information is given Given on time. It's given or delivered. Given or delivered on time. Given or delivered on time. Given and delivered on time. Then number 5, we have what? Attitude. Attitude or assumption. What do you do to attitude or assumption? Avoid assumption. Avoid assumption. Avoid assumption. Avoid assumption. Assumption. And also strike the right attitude. Strike the right attitude. Strike the right attitude to the message. Strike the right attitude to the message. Number 6, we have expectation of communication. Expectation of communication, okay? What do you do to expectation of communication? I think you can give hizo zingine unaweza peana. Is that okay? That's how we come up with barrier to effective communication. Barrier to effective communication. Barrier to effective communication. Then acha tuangalie sasa kwa characteristic of communication. Characteristic of communication. So let me add some ink in my pen. I'm coming to check on characteristic of so what entail communication, what entail communication. Or what happened during communication? What happened during communication is what we refer characteristic of communication. So ukiuliza kitu kama hiyo, give those actions that happen during communication. I'm talking about characteristic of communication. Characteristic of communication. Like number 1, we say it is the interchange of information. Communication is the interchange of information. Is the interchange of information. The interchange of information. Communication is the interchange of the information. Number 2, it's a continuous process. Continuous process. A continuous process. Continuous process. Continuous process. So what do you mean when you say continuous process?